Ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, I am sorry to disturb your desserts and your conversations. Please continue eating. Please don't continue talking. We're now going to move on to the next part of the program, which are the Regional Tall Building Awards. Hopefully you've enjoyed the program so far. I think you've seen why people like Caesar Pelly and Bill Baker have received the Lifetime Achievement Awards that they have. However, I'm sure that Caesar and Bill and all of you would recognize that any building, and especially a tall building, is not about a single person's effort. You know, it's often about tens, hundreds, sometimes thousands of people's effort. And that's what this next part of the program is about. It's about awarding projects from all the geographical regions of the world and awarding excellence, or what we and our jury perceives as excellence in tall building design. I want to read you the criteria for the Tall Building Awards. These awards recognise projects that have made extraordinary contributions to the advancement of tall buildings and the urban environment, and that achieve sustainability at the highest and broadest level. The projects must also exhibit processes and/or innovations that have added to the profession of design and enhanced the cities and lives of their inhabitants. We have 4 Tall Building Award winners tonight, and at the end of the 4 Tall Building award winner presentations, we're going to award one of those projects as the best overall tall building 2008. And even I do not know which one that is going to be. Tim, the chair of our awards committee, has an envelope, very Oscar style, and we're going to do it by opening the envelope. Presumably he knows. By the way, I forgot to introduce myself. I should have done that at the beginning. For those who don't know me, I'm Anthony Wood, the Executive Director of the Council on Tall Buildings and Urban Habitat. I'm going to hand over to Tim, who's going to announce the first 2 awards. And just so everybody's aware, we're going to have several members of project teams, in some cases, come up, and a representative of the project team, usually the architect or the owner, is going to say a couple of words on behalf of the winning team. So, Tim Johnson.
Thank you, Anthony. This will give everyone a great opportunity to let that ice cream melt a little bit in the apple crisp, which is my favorite, but the ice cream is a little hard. So as Anthony said, we're going to walk through each of the regions and award the regions. What's interesting, the first one we're going to award is the best building for the Americas region, which is North America. And as you probably all know, and as Bill Baker had mentioned, a lot of innovation in high-rise design and high-rise buildings have been built over the years in this country, but in fact over the last 10, 15, 20 years that has certainly migrated to other parts of the world. So we were very surprised, actually we weren't surprised, we were very excited that we received quite a number of submissions for tall buildings in the United States and in the Americas. And I think what I'd like to do in introducing the New York Times building, which was the award-winning tower, is to actually start at the level of detail. And I think that was most significant in these times when we're exceeding extraordinary heights, that this building to me and to the jury was a building of significant craft. And you could tell that this wasn't just your normal spec office building. And although the jury was impressed with Forest City Ratner and their ability to manage their pro forma and get an extraordinary building, this building is exquisitely detailed and exquisitely put together. Another point that I'll make is about sustainability. This building, and you'll see in the booklet, it outlines a number of the sustainable strategies: a green roof, floor-to-ceiling glass with this wonderful frit, ceramic frit, sunshade that's on the outside that totally transforms the building from day to night, underfloor air distribution, natural gas-fired cogeneration plant, and one of the things that we probably all need in our lives, traveling like we do, external stairs for people to run up and down the building and communicate on various floors. therefore reducing the electric loads in the elevators. So that's a great accomplishment for a very tall building. But one of the things that I thought was also very interesting, if you know this section of New York, it was wonderful for us that live in New York to watch this building come out of the ground and be finished. This is a pretty nitty-gritty part of New York. Right across the street is an enormous bus station, and it's a place where this building has created kind of a quietness to that neighborhood that was just so wonderful to see. And then also, obviously, the New York Times company and the commitment they made to do great design and the reflection of the building, very transparent, very open, very welcoming, and even at the ground level, they go so far as to make the building and the public space very accessible for all of us. So those were the elements that we really brought to the conclusion that this would be the best tall building in the Americas. So congratulations to the team that put together the New York Times building. So coming up to the podium is the entire team, and I'm going to ask Glenn Hughes of the New York Times Company and Erik Volz from Renzo Piano Building Workshop to introduce the team and to say a few words.
So thank you very much for the introduction. Everything is said, more or less. I thought this was my job to explain the building, but okay. So, of course, we are very honored today about this award of the Best Building of Americas. And thank you a lot. And actually, the grand opening of the building was almost exactly 1 year ago. And before this was, of course, a rather long effort. It was 3 years of design, 3 years of construction, which is a long time, but at the same time for building like that, we feel that's really what's needed to make kind of good architecture. And everything is also related to good teamwork in such a project, and therefore I would like to take advantage to thank our great clients, the New York Times Company, and also of course CTBUH, which is not here today, unfortunately, and also our partners and main consultants, FX Architects in New York, and Thornton Tomasetti, structural engineers, and Fleck & Kurtz, our MEP engineers. I'm also very glad to be here today in this masterpiece of architecture, Crown of Mies van der Rohe. First time for me here, and I think elements like the open space and this kind of fighting gravity is important for architecture. But back to our building. We think that the New York Times building is basically a story about lightness and transparency. The lightness, I guess we think we can see at the bottom of the building, because actually only very few of the so-called opaque elements touches the ground, which are the elevators and the columns. The rest is transparent. You also can see the idea of the lightness at the top of the building, because there's this kind of fade-out effect, the play of the screens, which cantilevers up to the sky. And the other main piece of the building is the transparency. And we think the overall transparency we created is a bit different than for a normal building, because we wanted to avoid kind of monolithic, monolayer structure with more or less mirrored or tinted glass. Therefore, we created this kind of double layer system with the inner layer of very transparent curtain wall system, which we call the crystal. And outside we have this outer layer, the sunscreen, which is like 2 feet away from the crystal, which we call the lace. And the lace is made of ceramic tubes, altogether around 200,000 pieces. They're like 5 feet long, 1.5 inch in diameter. And these lace tubes, they do actually a kind of double duty. First, of course, they give this nice depth to the building and this kind of very interesting reflectivity of the building. There was even one journalist who called this a photosensitive tower. We like this expression a lot. And of course, the sunscreen also helps to protect the building from the sun. Therefore, in terms of energy savings, the building is quite different from normal office buildings from code. But I guess it's the moment when I would like to hand over to Glenn, because he spent a lot of time and effort to think about in detail about how you can make such a building sustainable. Thank you.
Thank you, Erik. It's an honor to be here. On behalf of the New York Times and Forest City Ratner Companies, our partner, we want to thank the Council for this award. We are truly honored. I'd like to spend just a short amount of time acknowledging the team that helped make this possible. The architects included Renzo Piano Building Workshop, FX Fowl, as Erik stated, but it also included Gensler as our interior architect, which made a big difference to the space that we all live in at the New York Times. Our engineers, Thornton Tomasetti and Flack & Kurtz. Flack & Kurtz contributed both to the core and shell and to our interior design. Our lighting designer, our lighting consulting designer, was a key component, team member, Susan Brady Lighting Design Studio, that helped us create the daylighting control system that we have. And there was a lot of research and development that went into this building. It wasn't designed straight up. We needed to do a lot of research and development to make it what it is. We had to cross some new barriers. We had to pioneer a little bit to make what we have. And I want to acknowledge Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, UC Berkeley, and our innovative daylighting suppliers, who really did a lot of research and development to make it all possible. Just a little bit about how we made it happen. I'm not going to get into a lot of details, but the New York Times created a philosophy right from the start, and we said that the reason we're going to build this building is to enhance the way we work. If we can make who we are, if we can do what we do better because of the new habitat that we create, then we will have succeeded. That's the reason to build this building. And that, coupled with translating the vision that Erik just described, is exactly what we did. Thank you very much.
How about a round of applause? I think all of us out in the audience know how hard it is to do great buildings, and so every building that we represent here is such an effort of all of our kind of sweat and tears, etc. So our next award is probably just from the opposite, as I was talking about the U.S. having somewhat of a lesser role in the high-rise development around the world. This is a region, Asia and Australia, which is frankly just the opposite. As we know, we're those of us that are working in the Asian region, it's the fast-growing, it's half the world's population, and there's a tremendous amount of pressure to develop things very quickly. The project that has won the award for the Asian-Australia region is the Shanghai World Financial Center. And I think what's interesting about that is you start out with the client, the Mori Building Company, that I know we all know and respect, the kinds of innovations and the risks that they've taken and the confidence they've had in design being a big part of their business strategy in things like Roppongi Hill, which I've often admired, and to take on those challenges that push us to new heights. You can imagine a building, this is a building that has a significant height, and as you know, the council has 4 levels of height measurement, of which this building is currently the tallest in 2 of the 4 categories. The two categories are, one, it's the tallest roof line in the world currently, and it's also the highest occupied floor in the world. So this is certainly a building that has reached new heights. I think also the poetics. This has obviously become a symbol of not only Shanghai but also China, and I think those of us that either were at the Beijing Olympics or saw the opening ceremonies on television with architecture constantly in the background. The country of China has made an enormous investment in doing great design, and this is one of those buildings that significantly contributes to that. As you look into this building, and the jury was certainly interested in all aspects of this, there's a very innovative structure that was done by Leslie Robertson Associates. The mega diagonal, the outrigger, the belt truss, and the core wall truss are all elements that we're all familiar with. They've been developed over time, but sort of composing those all together made this building possible and made this height possible. So it's really an honor to award the best tall building for Asia and Australia to the Shanghai World Financial Center. And to speak on behalf of the project is Akio Yashimura, who is the president of the Mori Building Company, and we obviously appreciate the effort that the Mori Building Company has taken to join us this evening.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Thank you very much. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate this. This is a great honor, and I am very happy that the Shanghai World Financial Center now it's become the landmark in Shanghai. It's awarded as the best tall building in Asia and Australasia 2008. The project has more than 30 international shareholders in the United States, Japan, and Asian countries. We had a wonderful grand opening party just 3 weeks ago in Shanghai, together with many stakeholders to celebrate its grand opening and CTBUH award in advance. From the stage, I'd like to thank all of our business partners. First of all, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to Cohn, Pedersen, and Fox Associates. Please give them a big hand. And Leslie E. Robertson Associates. Please give them a big hand. Without their great support and participation, I cannot come to this stage tonight. They deserve this award as well. Secondly, I want to thank all the members of our jury who volunteered their time and intelligence to select the winners. I really appreciated the partnership with CTBUH. As you know, the building officially holds 2 important titles: highest occupied floor and the highest rooftop in the world. And tonight, we add another honor: best tall building in Asia and Australasia 2008. Again, thank you for all of your support to give the award to Shanghai World Financial Center. Thank you very much.
Gene Cohen and Bill Pedersen from Cohen Pedersen Fox, and also Satine C from Lara, who are also joining us tonight from New York. Thank you very much.
Okay, it's my honour to announce the second two Regional Building Award winners. When I was a student, quite a while ago, though you might not think it, I went on a Mecca to a place called Ipswich, which is on the east of England. Many of you here, I'm from the UK, have maybe never heard of it. But most architects in the room should have heard of one of Norman Foster's first buildings, first of many. It was a building which at the time was called the Willis Faber Dumas Building. And it was completed in 1975. It's a building which was revolutionary for its time. It was a building which impacted me massively as a student of architecture. It's a building which certainly didn't invent the curtain wall, but took it in new directions. It's a building which occupied its roof for leisure activities, green roof, if you like, one of the first green roofs for the occupants of the building. And it's very relevant to the next award, because 33 years later, we're here to honour the second Willis building, as the first building is now called, which is otherwise known as 51 Lime Street. And 51 Lime Street, which exists in the City of London, as you can see on the screen here, is a building which I feel very passionately responds to its context. And the great thing about the Willis Faber Dumas building from 33 years previously is the way that it integrated with its context. Whilst being a completely modern building, it integrated with its context essentially by reflecting that context in this plate black glass, seminal planar fixing type facade. And although the 51 Lime Street building, i.e. the modern Willis building, is completely different. It's about 3 times higher in part. It's 33 years later. And the facade articulation is different. For me, it's the same type of architecture. And the thing that impacts me specifically, I was there a few weeks ago, is the way that the same facade, different facade, but the way that the facade similarly kind of almost consumes the surroundings and puts it back out there again. It's a building which really holds its own and does something special to an absolutely special part of London. Its neighbours is Richard Rogers' Lloyd's of London building, one of the seminal buildings of our time. A great urban space there. Swiss Re is but 300 or 400 feet from it, and yet the 51 Lime Street building really does hold its own within this unique area of the City of London. So it's my great honour and privilege to welcome Ian Whitby to the stage. Ian's joined us from Norman Foster & Partners in London to collect the award for the best tall building in Europe, which goes to 51 Lime Street, London.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for that glowing introduction. I see you've actually pinched about half of my speech. So I'm going to be quite short as a result. It's probably a good thing. But I'd like to start by saying I'm genuinely delighted to be here this evening to accept the award for Best Tall Building Europe from the Council on Tall Buildings and Urban Habitat. Delighted not just because of the eminence of the Council and the work that it does, but also to be able to accept this accolade on behalf of all the other people who are involved, and many people who are more or less up front or behind the scenes, depending on what their role is. British Land and Stanhope are joint clients on this project. Were not able to join us, but sent their best wishes and their thanks. They also put together a fantastic team to work with us to realise this project. Ramble Whitby Bird, the structural engineers, Roger Preston and Partners on services, and Davis Langdon Cost Consultants were all core members of the design team that we led as the architects for the project. And we were later joined by Mace Construction Management, who were innovative and forceful in the way that they made the building come out of the ground. So all of those people working together met a very demanding timescale to allow Willis to occupy this according to their programme, which was in February of this year. On behalf of all of those involved, I'd like to thank you for this award. Since the design of the Hong Kong Shanghai Bank, Foster & Partners has continued to investigate the context and spirit of the city around tall buildings and how they work together. Throughout that, the practice has developed a sort of substantial body of work that has evolved the idea of the urban room, where genuine connections are made to the public realm and established around the base of buildings, and where the way in which a building touches the ground is absolutely paramount to its success. Last year, the Council awarded their best tall building in the sustainability category to our Hurst Tower project, which developed its own approach to the urban room. The Willis building does something quite different, new Willis building I should say, does something quite different at 51 Lime Street. It's much more about external rooms, I would say, rather than the internal room of the Hurst Tower. And it has reopened the historic street pattern around the building, which I think is what Anthony's referring to when he says it does something in the area of the building. Public realm is activated by placing a lot of retail units around the bases of the buildings, and the vitality of the neighbouring Leadenhall Market, which is a particularly vibrant part of the City of London, is drawn into the site, where previously there had just been blank stone walls. These were all very important driving factors behind the design of the building right from the outset. It was very, very important that we try to get those right. The tall buildings themselves have the ability to transform skylines in addition to what they do at the ground level. And 51 Lime Street is one of the two buildings that we've been able to build in the last few years in London that have had an effect on the skyline. Swiss Re is the other one, and 51 Lime Street most recently. But we have to consider the impact of those buildings on the buildings around us, and in fact the curved shell forms of Lime Street's tower are a direct response to the buildings around us, and the attempt to try and allow light to pass around the building and into the buildings and spaces around us. That's very much the generator of the form that you see in these images. Equally important to that is the sustainability of the project. We've touched on it several times this evening. Another very important driver, and in fact the completely different facade that you see on the north and south facade. This is not a glazed facade at all. This is actually more than 50% solid, quite a departure for the practice. Is an extremely important part of that. It is designed to shade the interior of the building and therefore reduce the solar gain in the building substantially. That careful design work which we carried out with Emma Feniger Partners and with Schmidlin, the cladding contractors, along with some very careful M&E design by Roger Preston and Partners, again working with a series of suppliers, have led us to be able to reduce our carbon reduction, achieve carbon reduction targets of more than 20% in excess of the statutory requirements. That was in excess to the demanding criteria that was set for us by our client. So in that sense alone, it's been a very successful project. As Anthony's mentioned, this is a bit where we repeat. 30 years ago, Norman Foster and his team worked with Willis Insurance Group, as they were then, to create a pioneering building in Ipswich. This headquarters building at Lime Street, and interestingly, you might be interested to know, there was a guy working on the project in Ipswich in 1975 who also worked on this project. And the only thing he said to us was that we weren't allowed to put any grass on the roof terraces because there had been a maintenance nightmare for him. Unfortunately, we were able to make the terraces into really positive amenity spaces for the staff at the Willis building. And they now have a dining terrace for their staff at the level 16 and for a client entertaining at level 23. Both of these offer the most stunning views across London, and again were major driving forces in the design of the building. So Willis and their associates, as they call the people who work there, now work in well-lit, distinctive, open-plan office space. They look up from their desks occasionally to catch glimpses of London to a very dynamic and active facade on the north and south side of the building, where the sawtooth, as we call it, has generated the vertical stripes that you see in the elevations here, so that they work both internally and externally. And we find now that people step into the little spaces formed by these diagonal pieces of cladding to take calls on their cell phones or just to read documents and so on. They've really added a very, very positive space at the edge of the building. This project, like all the ones that we've seen here, presented great challenges throughout its realisation, but we now believe it has succeeded in most of its aims and is occupied. It is a great honour to receive this award from the Council on Tall Buildings and Urban Habitat at that time, therefore. So thank you once again.
Sorry, that's a bit awkward. Awards dinners, they always are. Okay, I want to go off on one for 30 seconds, so please humour me. Sustainability. The two biggest factors that I think impair us as an industry moving seriously forward with creating better buildings and tall buildings to face the challenges of climate change are A, greenwash, and B, the front-loading of all rating systems with respect to what green buildings really are. And by greenwash, I mean pick up the pages of any publication, you will see everybody declaring that they're the greenest thing since green grass. You know, and there is no substantiation of the claims. And the problem with LEED and many of the other systems around the world is that they're all front-loaded. They're all about some architect some consultant team 5 years before the building is occupied saying, our building is going to do this. And we think as the council that one of the biggest barriers is the lack of post-occupancy monitoring, the lack of tying standards in green buildings to how the building performs once it's occupied. There's very little of that going on, and where it goes on, there's no release of that information into the public domain. And that's really important, because what I think we need to recognise as an industry is that we are at a completely experimental stage in developing sustainable buildings. We're going to look back on this time in 20, 30 years and we're going to say, well, that was a silly dead end, that was a silly dead end, and we don't actually know what works and what doesn't work. And until we get the data from the buildings that are experimenting, nobody's going to actually be in a position to confidently move forward. But what I do know is this, or what I think is this. The projects that are investing in these technologies are the projects that we really need to support. And the next project for me epitomises, that situation that I think we're in. It's a building that exists in Bahrain. It's a building that the client and the team behind it have invested literally millions and millions and millions of dollars to harness 3 wind turbines on the building. Do we know how much energy that will provide? Do we know how much percentage of energy the building will consume? We don't yet know that. The wind turbines are only beginning to build. But I think these are the projects that we need to support and recognise, because someone is willing to put the money into these projects for the betterment of mankind, for us to see, is it the right thing to harness wind in tall buildings? Because though a lot of people profess that they know, the reality is that nobody knows. Are they better in tall buildings? Are they better in the urban environment? Or are they better as offshore farms? Both? Whatever. So I feel very, very passionate about the next project. I think it's the most experimental building that's been built since Norman Foster's Commerzbank, both predominantly for the risks that it takes and the team and what the client has invested in this project. So it's my great honour to welcome to the stage Shaun Killa from Atkins, the lead designer, who's going to talk for 2 minutes and receive the award for the best tall building, Middle East and Africa, for the Bahrain World Trade Center.
It is a great honor to be here this evening and accepting this highly acclaimed award. This building is not only uses passive, active and recovery systems to reduce its energy consumption, but also has become the world's first building to integrate large-scale wind turbines.
Through wind tunnel tests and CFD modeling, the building's form and massing, carves and funnels Bahrain's onshore winds to generate between 25 and maybe 30% of its energy through renewable sources. We hope this building will accelerate the awareness of sustainable design in the built environment, and we hope it sets the path for designers and developers to consider incorporating more renewables and energy efficient measures in their future developments to reduce their carbon emissions. We have shown through this project that it is possible to create a commercial development with a highly sustainable agenda. We would like to thank CTBUH for their recognition of the Bahrain World Trade Center for awarding the best tall building for Africa and Middle East region. We'd also like to thank our client for embracing our concept back in 2004 and being so positive towards the challenges of creating such an innovative development. We'd like to thank all of the architects and engineers throughout Atkins. We did mechanical, electrical, structures, project management, site supervision, vibration analysis, you name it. In particular, the project architect, Naveen Dev, and the site project, the project manager, Thimiletho, for their timeless and meticulous efforts in coordinating the project over the past 4 years. Our thanks goes to all the consultants and contractors that have worked on this project and made it a reality. I'd like to thank Ramble and Norwin, who took on the challenge to design and install the turbines and the bridges and helping us to create this world first. Our thanks goes to the Bahrain residents who have proudly accepted this building as their national icon and leading their way for other Middle East countries to initiate and adopt an environmental agenda. And lastly, I'd like to thank my wife, who has stood by me for these years and shared our marriage with my passion for architecture and sustainability. Thank you.
Okay, we're almost done. There is one lonely award on the table here. And that lonely award goes to the best tall building overall 2008. Here to announce the award is Tim Johnson.
Not another applause, please. Did anyone wonder what the question mark was after? Now you know. I just want to make a comment about the extraordinary increase in, I think, professionalism and things that get as small details as this that the council has provided. We have a great staff just next door, actually, that's churning out the books that you have on your tables, the publications, the websites, and I think Anthony and David have done a fantastic job elevating this group, and I think we should first give them a round of applause for organizing this and supporting that. They're the two visible ones. We also need to thank Jerry Carey, who, as everyone knows, has been with the council probably longer than any of us. So, Jerry, thank you. And I hope I didn't pinch too much of Anthony's closing remarks. But anyway, I just want to keep the suspense up. So anyway, 4 projects awarded, 4 regions. I'm sure everyone has their opinion of the best tall building. In fact, I think we could all say that easily any one of these 4 buildings could take home the large trophy wherever it went. But it was really a task for the jury to go deep inside of each of these projects. And the project that came out of all of this, the winner, is a project that I think we can all learn from. It's a project that, we can learn from it technically, we can learn from it urbanistically. It's a project that, frankly, had persistence, which we may all have to learn from in these coming months, hopefully, and not years. It's a project that brought together a great client and great firms, architects, engineers, to do something wonderful, and it reached new heights. And so, if that's not enough to tip it off, I'll say that the winner of the 2008 CTBUH Best Tall Building is the Shanghai World Financial Center. I know it's not too much to ask to have you come up yet again. And perhaps Bill or Jean Saltine, if you would like to say a few words, we'd love to hear more.
Well, we're absolutely astonished because Bill Baker opened the evening by saying that he was admonished when he's working for SOM that the structural engineer's job is to do a structure that's so beautiful that no one ever wants to cover it up. And Satine and Leslie did a structure that was so beautiful that it shouldn't have been covered up, but we did. So we're quite amazed to receive this award. I think Franklin Wright was asked very famously by Buckminster Fuller how much his building weighed, because Bucky knew down to the ounce how much his buildings weigh. Well, our building, we know, weighs a lot less now than it did in 1997 when it stopped construction. I'll explain a little bit about that. This building started in design in 1993, and we designed a building that was 460 meters, and they started construction, and they drove all the piles for the building down 90 meters, and then it stopped construction for 5 years, and we started again, and Mr. Morey decided he wanted to make the building 32 meters higher. And not just 32 meters higher, he also wanted to make it considerably bulkier, so that the volume of the building was about 20% more than it was in 1997. And so it was Satine's and Les's job to be able to create a building that was no heavier than the previous building, so it could sit on those original piles without having to drill more. And they did it. The building actually weighed less with a larger volume. So I think that is quite an extraordinary accomplishment. I also would like to say that we have the pleasure of working with an extraordinary developer. Mr. Morey has a vision about what he tries to create, which is so connected to the urban environment and the manner in which people ought to be living and potentially can be living to create a tremendous vitality within our cities. So he never looks at a building as an isolated entity, but he always looks at a building as a city within a city. And so one of the unique things about the Shanghai World Financial Center, even though it appears to be a fairly monolithic volume, is it contains within it a tremendous variety of views. But most importantly, on the last 80 meters of the building, the entire use is essentially civic. That anybody can come to this building and go up into it and participate in it in a way which makes it a symbol for all of the people that live in Shanghai, and not simply as a symbol of private enterprise. And I think this attitude on the part of the development community is a sort of attitude that is going to potentially prevail. And we are looking forward, I believe, to a period of the development of the tall building, which is going to create absolutely an entirely different product in the next 20 or 30 years. I was talking with Anthony before, and I said that, I really believe that the design of the tall building is in its infancy. And I think that why we feel so pleased to win this award tonight is that there were buildings that were represented here that are pointing the way to the future of the tall building. And we are extremely supportive and extremely proud to be included in a group of buildings that have such tremendous foresight and are really pushing the envelope to the next stage, because in 20 years, the buildings that we're going to be seeing built around the world are going to be, one, very different from the ones we see today, and two, I think are going to offer a tremendous step forward to the state of the art. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I'm happy to come back to this stage again. And I'll give you some short message. Let me see them up. I think you wonder why I prepared this letter in advance. I say, I think why. I am a Boy Scout. You know, I have a Boy Scout activity in Tokyo, Japan. So, you know, Dayton Powell started this Boy Scout activity. He said, as a motto of a Boy Scout, you know? So that always be prepared. Nowadays, the world economy is not in good and healthy, but I expect the business activity of the Shanghai World Financial Center can contribute somehow to make the global economy better. One more thing. I want to tell all of you, the person who become happiest to hear this word is Mr. Middlebody, our CEO and President of a Mall Building Company Limited. He has led the project and spent for 15 years to complete Shanghai World Financial Center project. Without his passion, patience, and tenacity, I believe this project cannot stand in this world today. Now I can find the right word to say my feeling and happiness. For all the people here tonight, I can say thank you enough. Thank you very much.
And for those possible skeptics in the audience, and you can take this from me, none of the project teams knew who was going to win that award. So although it might have looked very well choreographed, I can guarantee you the Shanghai World Financial Center did not know they were going to win that award. It's my job to say some closing comments, so I ask for your attention for a further 2 minutes. I'm going to start with points of order, because it's always an anticlimax to finish with points of order. You've all been told that you're going to get a free copy of this book. Well, not so much free, because it's included in your admission fee, but you will all get a copy of the 2008 award-winning projects book. They're ready for collection on the other side of that screen as you leave, and all you need to do is 2 things to receive your copy. As David said at the beginning, fill out this little form, if you haven't done already, with your name and address. Hand that over and we will hand you the book. And give us your business card. Because we will not inundate you with emails, but we do have some great stuff to send your way. I'd like to put that in context just for a second. You've heard a lot tonight about the council and what it has achieved in the past 2 years. 2.5 years ago, Council on Tall Buildings and Urban Habitat had 1 member of staff, and she's actually sat on the table in front of us, Jerry Kerry. She's been with the council for 25 years. She was our single member of staff, and we relied on a complete volunteer input to function in the way that we did. 2 years later, we now have 6 full-time members of staff. And we also have about 6 to 8 part-time members of staff. And on top of that, we also have an army of volunteers who help us on a day-to-day basis. If you think about your own organisations, to grow from arguably 1 to 8, 9 equivalent full-time staff in 2 years is fairly astronomical. We couldn't have done that without the support of IIT. And just so you're all clear how that works, IIT have provided the infrastructure for our growth for free. And what I mean is, they give us office space, they give us IT, they give us human resources, and we can concentrate our efforts on paying our staff to concentrate exclusively on output. And by output, I mean hold conferences like our Dubai 8th World Congress, where 1,000 people flew in from around the world to attend, as they did in March of this year. To produce the journal 3-4 times a year, to produce books like the one in front of you, our website, which is a massive resource, and to basically produce the output which holds us true to our mission, which is to disseminate best practice multidisciplinary information in tall buildings. Plans for 2009. What are we going to do with these 8 equivalent full-time staff? Well, we have plans for 12 books over the next 2 to 3 years, the first one of which is in front of you, and you're going to grab it on the way out. We're holding a conference in Mumbai in May 2009. We're going to hold a major event in October 2009. And that's to celebrate our 40th anniversary. We were formed in 1969, and next year we'll be celebrating our 40th anniversary. We haven't quite decided what that's going to be, but there is some talk of a skyscraper festival here in the city of Chicago. We've been talking with Sadu at the city of Chicago and other people about that, perhaps in conjunction with the awards dinner and various other things next year. So, one thing I do want to say, in these times of credit crunch, we rely on the input of our members, we rely on the financial support of our members, or we wouldn't be able to do the things that we've done. And I know that times are tight for everybody, but we couldn't exist if we didn't have that. So, you know, certainly on behalf of myself, David, and the whole executive committee, we thank you for that support and hope that it continues. I'd like to finish with a final thanks. And the final thanks goes to Tim. Actually, Tim's chaired our awards committee for 3 years. He's done a sterling job. There are people around this table, around this room, perhaps 50% of people around this room that have maybe attended our awards dinner in the last 3 years. And I'm sure you have seen, as you have with the website and the journal and the conferences and everything else, how the quality of this dinner, this event and the awards has stepped up each year. So Tim has done a remarkable job, and I'd just like to have a round of applause for Tim Johnson. And the final thing I want to say, I want to plant a little seed in your minds. Tim is stepping down, and we don't have an awards chair to take over from Tim. But you know, something tells me that the next awards chair may be sat in this room. There are lots of ways that you can get involved in the council. Working groups, awards chair, steering group, country leaders. And all I would urge you all to do, if you don't know much about us, find out what we do and get involved. Don't forget your books, and many thanks for attending. Thank you.